Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy. And I just wanted to rant for a couple of minutes about this impending election of doom. Unfortunately, Giant Meteor is not on the ballot. I would choose Giant Meteor, or failing that, Magilla Gorilla. In my state, unfortunately, one is not allowed to write in Magilla Gorilla or anything else. And that leaves Trump and Hillary. Some of you who may have read my stuff might recall a couple of months ago I wrote a few columns in defense of Trump, or at least in defense of him versus as a kind of a firewall against Hillary. I really did think that Trump presented a kind of a populist alternative. He's not a libertarian by any measure, but when he first started running, when he was running against the others, he seemed to be very much not into all of these endless wars and the police state, and I liked that. I liked that a lot. While I like in principle the idea of free trade, the fact is we don't have free trade. We have labor arbitrage, multinational agreements that benefit police states and authoritarian regimes like the Chinese and so on at the expense of American workers. So until you actually do have free trade, real free trade, I am opposed to the multinational trade deals that benefit the gigantic corporations at the expense of not just American workers, but also the people in those authoritarian countries who have very few rights, either political or economic. So I like that Trump was talking about that. That was a stark difference between not just himself and the Republicans, but also the Democrats. Republicans and Democrats fundamentally the same on most of these issues. So I like that. I also like that he talked about getting rid of Obamacare, not replacing it, repealing it, getting rid of it. In principle, he seemed to object to the idea that the federal government ought to be mandating that we be forced to pay money to the health insurance mafia. I like that a lot because I personally think that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is as profoundly anti-liberty as the income tax, and even more dangerous than the income tax. And I've written about that previously, but the brief synopsis of it is that if the government now has a stake in our health, it can claim virtually anything that we do or don't do in some way or another affects our health. And then our health has become a public concern. We no longer therefore have the right to make decisions about what we do because it could compromise our health and thereby impose costs on society. That's what's going to happen. I think it's the way by which they're going to do things like either ban guns or make them so prohibitively expensive by requiring that we purchase insurance riders for them and so on, and a variety of other things that they're going to do. They're going to restrict a lot of our hobbies. They're going to restrict our recreations. They're going to micromanage our lives, and they'll do it all on the basis of health via the Affordable Care Act known as Obamacare. So I thought about that. I thought about the wars, and I thought about the Supreme Court, which of course gets to make up the law as it wishes, and the next president will select 2 or 3 justices. So I was inclined to support Trump for those reasons, because he did seem to be not just an alternative to the Republicans, but also the Democrats, and in particular Hillary. But boy, has he been disappointing. The last month or so, he's done nothing but suck cop dick and talk about the usual fighting for freedom and crushing ISIS and all that crap, going after the enemies of freedom, who are really in D.C. And our state capitals and not in the Middle East, in my opinion. So he's become indistinguishable, in my mind, from any other Republican, and he's surrounded himself with typical Republicans like Mike Pence, who's a Bible beater and a neocon. So what I'm hoping for now in this election, and I think there's a very good chance that this is going to happen based on some anecdotal evidence, is that there will be a record low turnout so that neither one of these clowns, these authoritarian control freaks, can claim a mandate of the people and attempt to impose their agenda on us. If we're lucky, most people will stay home, and that will really effectively paralyze the government in terms of its ability to do anything truly radical, or rather, if it does try to do something really radical, it'll be obvious that it's, to use its own verbiage, anti-democratic, and it won't be able to sell it. and it won't be able to implement it nearly as effectively. So that's really what I'm hoping for here, and I have decided to stay home. I cannot bring myself to vote for Trump, unfortunately, and I would never vote for something like Hillary. And I'd love to vote for a libertarian candidate, but unfortunately Gary Johnson is not a libertarian. Gary Johnson is a Republican. I don't think Gary Johnson understands what it means to be a libertarian. I've got a rant up on the site, by the way, that gets into that and talks about what a libertarian is and isn't. And people may take issue with my definitions, but the thing that for me defines a libertarian more than any other factor is what we call the non-aggression principle, which means if you're a libertarian, you reject the idea that you've got the right to initiate violent force against any other person, and that the only type of physical force, coercion, that's morally justifiable is defensive. So regardless of how you think people should live their lives, regardless of whether you think somebody's doing something dumb, you've got no right to interfere with their actions or their lives in any way. The only caveat being if they're doing something that threatens you with, that imposes a tangible harm on you. If somebody else harms you in some way, of course you've got the right to defend yourself, but you do not have the right to take their money to be used for whatever purpose you think it ought to be used for. You don't have the right to tell them how to organize and order their lives. You don't have the right to tell them how to use their property. You don't have the right to tell them with whom they may associate, do business, and so on. You have no right to interfere with their personal choices, what they do with themselves and with other people voluntarily. Those are some of the things that define a libertarian. At any rate, the longer rant, again, is up at the site, epautos.com, which we've just updated. And hopefully you guys like the look of the new site, and let me know about that. And thanks for listening, and we will catch up with you again soon.